So the Libertarian candidate, I think, has become much less of a spoiler over the last few months. In May, we were finding him polling at 11%, and when you asked his people who their second choice was, they almost all said it was Tillis. So at that point, Sean Hall was clearly hurting Thom Tillis. Now Hall's down to 5%, and when you ask people who their second choice would be among his voters, they split pretty evenly between Hagan and Tillis. So at this point, he's not really having a spoiler effect. I'm sure if Thom Tillis loses by a point and Sean Hall gets 4%, he's going to get blamed for Tillis losing, but I don't think that's really true. The number of undecideds is unusually high this year, and that's something we're seeing not just in North Carolina but across the country, and that is the kind of thing that makes it more likely that you could potentially have an upset than in something like the presidential race where you only see 2 or 3% of voters undecided a week and a half out from the election. And I think the high level of undecideds is just a reflection of how much voters don't like either of these candidates, and there's a lot of people who are really saying, I just don't want to vote for either of these guys. And it's going to be interesting to see, do those people actually come out and vote for someone, or do they at the end of the day just end up staying home?
And one more question about the Hagan-Tillis race. There have been a ton of issues that people have heard about, but it still seems like one of the main issues is, do people dislike President Obama more, or do they dislike the North Carolina General Assembly more? But Tillis is trying to obviously tie Hagan to Obama, and Hagan is trying to tie Tillis to the General Assembly. How big a factor is that, and what are people thinking?
Well, the unhappiness about the legislature is the only reason this race is even still competitive for Kay Hagan, because in most of the key Senate races across the country, things are just falling apart for the Democrats. But being able to run against the legislature has really given Hagan a good approach she can take that is not available for the other Democratic candidates in the country. So President Obama's unpopular in North Carolina. He only has a 40% approval rating. The legislature's approval is in the 20 to 25% range. Now, it may be that the intensity of feelings about Obama are greater for a lot of people than the legislature, but at the end of the day, the legislature is even more unpopular than the president is, and if Kay Hagan pulls it out, that's going to have a lot to do with it. If Thom Tillis loses the Senate race in what is otherwise a good year for Republicans, he lost it in July of 2013 when the legislature just went crazy. That will have been the month that cost Thom Tillis the Senate race.